Welcome back to the channel where we talk all things tabletop. In this episode, I'm looking at classic board games such as Monopoly, chess and Risk, and talking about why they suck and some much better alternatives. Try to remember this isn't all serious, it's just some fun. They're old games which now have better options or other options. Take it with a grain of salt, or failing that, a stiff drink. Now, I found it quite hard to fill the 10th spot. Should Cards Against Humanity go on there? No. Whilst it's a terrible game, it's also not very interesting gameplay wise, meaning it would be very tough to offer an alternative I think players that like cards would enjoy. I thought maybe Codenames, which can be fun at times, Catan, which I quite like. So eventually I settled on number 10. Not really a classic, but I've gone for something quite mainstream now in Secret Hitler. Now, it's not a terrible game, but it's not all that fun. You might disagree, which is great, so sound off in the comments if you think I'm wrong, if you think another game deserved this spot instead. I'm honestly all ears. People have different preferences, so sound off yours in the comments. But for me, I think the hidden traitor thing can work, but I'm not a huge fan of games where if it's revealed, that's the entire point of the game. It doesn't leave me fulfilled, it leaves me wanting more to sink my teeth into. I think things like Werewolf and other titles drip themselves in role and strategy, but this title has none of that. So my alternative, The Thing. Based on a much better movie, I doubt Secret Hitler's even got a movie. In this game there's plenty of deception and sneaking around, moments you doubt your friends, which will drive you crazy as you play through this, trying to trust your friends as you escape the creature. It tries what Secret Hitler does, but for me, does it much better and on a much bigger scale. Also, if you're not particularly good at lying or bluffing, you don't have to sit out games night. In The Thing, you can still pull off your dastardly plan, even if you're revealed. Oh, that alien, what is he like? In at number 9, I've gone for Operation. I'm sure if you grew up, well, pretty much ever, you've played Operation. And I'm also sure you probably played it once and never again. There's not much to it, honestly. Test your dexterity and try and remove parts from that poor man. So we need an alternative dexterity title. Now, I've not played it, but I've seen it played, and Crokinole, I think it's pronounced, looks a ton of fun. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I recommended something so blindly. Instead, I've gone for Clask, a game I borrowed from a friend a while ago and I haven't given it back yet. Trust me, he's tried to take it. It's similar to something like air hockey where you're trying to knock the ball, in this case into the opponent's goal, using these lovely magnetic handles. Did somebody say magnets? The board also has 3 magnets placed in the centre. Now as you play, the ball can start to knock these around, and as mentioned, your handle is magnetic. You've got it right. Once 2 of these bad boys stick to your opponent, or indeed you, the other player gets a point. It's the alternative rules in this that make it so fun. There's so many different ways to score points. Sure, you can go for the ball, but watch out, there's a magnet. It's a lovely cat and mouse. There's even a 4-player variant. In at number 8, I've gone for Battleship. This one is difficult because I see Captain Sonar being recommended everywhere, but I've not played it again, so I can't recommend it. If you can, let people know in the comments why they should play that. I do think thematically it fits very well. But if we ditch the theme and focus more on gameplay, let's try and find a hidden movement game where you can at least reenact your favourite Battleship moments. How about something like Jaws or Fury of Dracula? Now, let's take Fury of Dracula for example. In this one person is going to play the Count himself and skulk around Europe. The other players act as hunters, trying to track him down, but they don't know where he is. He moves secretly, very similar to battleships and how you place your ships. It's a little bit of a stretch, sure, but I'm trying here, so cut me some slack, yeah? It's a great game, it's a ton of fun. The only downside I would say is, if your group doesn't like the one versus all aspect, this system might not be for you, so try Captain Sonar. Number 7, I've gone for Pictionary. Now, I've never played Pictionary, but we've all seen that moment in Friends when Monica does the thing. Hilarity ensues. However, the game itself is fairly straightforward. Draw pictures and guess what they are. It's like charades with a focus more on drawing, so let's find a slightly more interesting title. We've got Monstrosity. In this game, you get the fun of laughing at each other's drawings with some sense to the drawing. You're a paranormal investigator and players take turns as the victim, explaining what the monster they saw looked like. Everyone tries to draw that as explained, and then they reveal their card. Points are dished out to whoever is closest to the victim's picture. It's fun, it's quick, and unfortunately quite hard to find at the moment. So if that's the case and it's sold out everywhere near you, something like Scrawl or Telestrations feels very similar and is always good for a laugh. Number 6. Trivial Pursuit. One for all you brain boxes out there, a game where you battle it out in a host of categories to assemble a pie. That's how it works, and that's a pretty good reward as board games go. But maybe you don't have time to learn trivia, you're too busy doing your skateboard tricks or drinking lagers at the local watering hole. Or have I got the trivia game for you? Wits and Wagers, a game where you don't need to be the smartest at the table. However, it might help. You all make your predictions on questions such as, how many hot dogs does the average American eat in a year? Everyone puts their answers in the middle, and then you vote on which you think is the closest, but not over. So there's a few ways to gain points, and you're not relying on rolling certain numbers on dice. It's a win-win. In at number 5, I've gone for Guess Who. Now, Guess Who isn't the worst game. I remember playing this plenty of times as a kid, and it's had somewhat of a resurgence online recently, with people using variant rules such as stereotypes and other things to freshen the game up. We're going to throw it out though and play something else which is trying to piece together what others are thinking and trying to predict it. Wavelength. A game where one player is going to give out a prompt. For example, poorly made and well made. They would say this video, and hopefully you'd work out the wheel needs to turn slightly towards the right. Obviously. Unfortunately, at number 4 is Risk. Now, I don't think Risk is a bad board game at all. Sure, it takes a lot of time, a lot of dedication to it, and there isn't a great deal to its gameplay beyond area control, but it is a classic. Probably why it's on this list. However, the title speaks for itself, and we must find a slightly more complex and interesting alternative. So why not War of the Ring? This game is Risk with quest, story, and game-changing decisions outside of just combat. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, it's a no-brainer. If you enjoyed Risk but want more, it's a no-brainer. If you just like good games, well, you get the point. In at number 3, I've gone for Cluedo. Now, Cluedo is actually quite fun. Who doesn't love a good murder mystery? But it can be very simple and be very reliant on luck, which some people, myself included, might not enjoy too much. Rolling a dice and moving is never great, neither is solving the majority of a puzzle for someone else to barge in and steal the show. You didn't have the weapon or location, Sandra. Stop piggybacking off me. My alternatives, well, actually I've got 2 very similar titles here. If you're not into heavy games and want more of an introduction into this wacky world of board games, then try Betrayal at House on the Hill. A game where one of your friends is revealed as a traitor. They could be a madman who has grown their cat to a triceratops proportions and is now stalking the house looking for you. Or they could have shrunk you down and you now have to escape the house before they find you. Or hundreds of other non-size based horror tropes in a game which is different almost every single time you play it, offering endless amounts of fun. However, if you're looking for something slightly heavier or you've been playing board games for a while, I would say go for Mansions of Madness. It keeps the creepy house vibes with a much more interesting mystery to solve. In this game you'll play on a board and on an app. It is the 20th century. Your decisions having an impact on the game. It's sort of like Cluedo meets The Sims, but much better. In at number 2, controversially, I've gone for chess. Now, listen before you hit the dislike button. I know chess is everywhere at the minute. It's got a huge following on Twitch and even some interesting news articles recently. But I've got a list to fill, and by God, chess is a classic. So maybe not a bad game, but let's see if we can't jazz it up slightly. For this one, I've gone for Shobu or Onitama. Again, another couple of options. Onitama, very much chess-like. You have your pieces on a squared board or cloth and try to take out your opponent's leader or king. It's got the lovely addition of only being able to move certain ways on certain turns, depending which cards are available to you, but there is a finite amount in the game at a time, so you do know sort of what your opponent can do if you can keep track, and it creates this really interesting dynamic where you can move somewhere and set them up to move somewhere next turn, but you can be ahead if you plan correctly. It's a fascinating back and forth, very similar to Shobu, which is a checkers chess-like game, but instead of focusing on one squared board, it now takes place on 4. Ooh, fancy. Whenever you do something on one board, it mirrors on another, so now you need to think about 2 boards instead of 1. That's twice as good as chess. Finally, your number 1. It could be no other, Monopoly. Maybe the best known board game of all time, an absolute classic in which you buy things, taking a chance and hopefully stealing it back off friends and family later on, leading to many fights over money, real estate, and I never wanted this family anyway. I wish I was never born. We've got Camel Up. It keeps up the use of money and back and forth of players as you race camels. Camels that climb onto each other and can be influenced by players and even be carried back spaces by those kooky camels running the opposite direction. It's got all the bets, money you'll expect from Monopoly, partnerships and other shenanigans to make this an instant classic. But that's my list. If you think I missed anything or had any better recommendations, drop them in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video and want to see more tabletop content, ranging from board games to miniatures to the Pokemon TCG, then subscribe, leave a like. That's all I've got for this one though, so I will catch you in the next one.